Oh, and good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the candidate forum for Gale Borden Library Trustee in the consolidated election on April 6th. It's hosted by the League of Women Voters of the Elgin area. My name is Carol Grom and I will be the moderator tonight. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that works to empower voters and encourage informed participation in our democracy. One of the ways we do that is to hold candidate forums to provide voters an opportunity to hear the candidates running for election. The forums sponsored by the League give candidates for local offices a chance to present information about themselves and their candidacy. Background, skills, education, reasons for running for office, what they hope to accomplish if elected, and positions on various issues relevant to the office. All candidates in contested races were invited to participate in a forum. Each one was given the opportunity to fill out a candidate questionnaire on our website, and their written responses, if any, can be found in the voter guide. This evening, you'll have a chance to hear from 3 of the 4 candidates for library trustee: John Kokoris, Amy Prochot, and Joy Simmons. Randy Hopp did not respond to the invitation. The format for today's forum will be a 3-minute opening statement, followed by 2-minute responses to questions from the moderator, and ending with 2-minute closing statements. Our timekeeper will show the candidates when they have 1 minute left, 30 seconds left, and when their time is up. Questions for the candidates were selected from those submitted by League members. After the question and answer period, the candidates will have the opportunity to give a 2-minute closing statement beginning in reverse order. So welcome to our candidates and thank you for agreeing to participate tonight. Mr. Kokoris, we will begin with your 3-minute opening statement, please.
Thank you. I'd like to begin just by thanking the League of Women Voters, not just for hosting this forum, but for all the work they do to empower us as citizens and push our democracy forward. So my name is John Kokoris. I've served as your trustee since I was appointed by the library board to fill a vacancy this past fall, and I'm running to keep my seat. A bit about me: I spent 9 years working in the library field, and I currently work at a public transportation agency. My wife and I live on the east side of Elgin, and besides going to the library constantly, we like getting food in downtown Elgin, running on the Fox River Trail, and spending lots of time at Lord's Park. But the library is really where my heart is. And over my career and my time as a library patron, I've been to more than 100 libraries in our state. I've seen hundreds of library programs. I presented at conferences. I've collected newsletters, and I've talked to more librarians than you can imagine. I know for a fact that we have the best library in the state, and I want it to stay that way. So I'm not running to tell our staff how to do their job, but I will make sure I stand up for certain values as long as I'm on the board. To start, I want to make sure everyone in our diverse community is welcome and well served. I want to use my professional experience in local government to help foster connections that will help us stretch our budget further and help more people. I'll encourage our staff to continue innovating as they've done throughout this pandemic and look for new ways to serve more people. And most importantly, I'll focus on environmental and financial sustainability to make sure that future generations will be able to benefit from our wonderful library the same way we do now. Our library wins national awards because our community recognizes the value it brings to us. We build great buildings, we hire brilliant workers, and we are constantly putting those assets to use in creative, productive ways. And my top goal as we emerge from this pandemic, hopefully soon, is going to be to use all this to help the community share resources, learn skills, and forge relationships so that we can kind of regroup and rebuild us as a stronger, more just society. I really believe that we have the resources and the creativity on hand at the library to make life better for people after a really, really hard year. and I'm excited to help make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Prochot, your 3-minute opening statement, please.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Amy Prochot, and I first want to thank the League of Women Voters Elgin area for hosting this forum virtually, giving us the opportunity to speak to the district residents even during a pandemic. I hope you've read my responses on the League's candidate guide and will watch for my Daily Herald candidate profile. I'll use my opening statement to introduce myself and discuss my qualifications and passion for libraries. I often say that my love for library seed was planted when I was in preschool, visiting the former Grove Avenue Library building. I've been a library user my whole life, and I spent 9 years working in public libraries. I started out in college working as a digital services assistant at the Arlington Heights Memorial Library. And then I became the operations manager at the Lincolnwood Public Library District. After being fully immersed in the library world for many years, I moved into commercial real estate, where I'm now an assistant property manager for a Class A office complex. Now that I'm an Elgin resident again, I'm excited to become more involved in my community. I spoke to the library CEO, Carol Metal, recently, and she described the library as being woven into the tapestry of the community. No doubt the community is stronger when local organizations partner with the library to serve the diverse population of Elgin and neighboring towns within the district. And everyone seems to have a great sense of pride when they talk about the award-winning library and its services. If you're watching this, chances are you already know how incredible the Gale Borden Public Library is. I love getting the newsletter in the mail so I can flip through and circle all the events I want to attend. And there's something to interest everyone in every age group, and the librarians and staff have done an amazing job providing their fun and educational events virtually throughout the pandemic. With just a little magical card in your wallet, you have access to hundreds of thousands of books and other materials. If you can't make it to the library, you can have your materials delivered to your home or visit a bookmobile at a stop in the district. I know I sound like a walking billboard for the library, but my former library colleague taught me to wear my marketing hat proudly. I will keep spreading the word because the library needs its residents as much as the residents need the library. I believe the library is always evolving to meet the needs of the community, and it's one of the most important resources your tax dollars can support. Not only am I qualified to be a trustee, but I'm a good fit. I bring to the table a level head, curiosity, passion, and the ability to collaborate with my peers for the good of the community. I'm a proud resident, and I would be honored to serve as a trustee.
Thank you. And finally, we have Ms. Simmons.
Hello, I'm Joy Simmons. I'm a small business owner in Elgin, and I have lived here for going on 7 years. And I'd like to start with a story. I'm originally from Michigan in a small town, and I spent a lot of time at our local library. It was pretty much my #1 place to go and hang out, and my mom spent a lot of time driving me back and forth from there. And around the time I was 16, the library decided to have a contest to create a logo. At the time, they decided that they wanted to have an image to represent what they did for the community. And I entered that contest, and my design was chosen to be the logo for several years. My drawing was a picture of 2 hands shaking over an open book. And honestly, I feel like today I've come completely full circle now that I live in Elgin and get to take advantage of all Gale Borden has to offer every day. That is what our library is. It's a partnership between the community and the staff all over the wonders of education that you can find in between the covers of a book. A little bit about me. My husband and I own Symonds Madison Funeral Home in downtown Elgin, and we are very active members of the community. You may have heard that I have founded Operation Love, which is a volunteer network. The Love stands for Love Our Veterans Elgin. And this came out of a funeral that we hosted for an unclaimed veteran about a year ago. And we had hundreds of people show up for his funeral and say they wanted to continue to be involved. That's just one example of how I was able to capitalize on a problem and create a solution. So I'm looking forward to bringing those skills, those community organizing skills, those community partnership skills to the Gale Borden Library Board of Trustees. I'm excited to bring all my enthusiasm. When I first moved to Elgin, I could not believe how big our library was. It was amazing. And I actually went to Michigan State University for undergrad, and I could not believe that this local library in Elgin was about as big as my Big Ten University library. And one of the first things I said to my husband was, I can't wait to have kids so we can take them to the library and enjoy all it has to offer. And that dream came true. I have 2 children, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. I've met a lot of other mothers here in Elgin through library programming, and that's really helped me get more involved in the community. So I'm excited to represent the voice of young families, the voice of small business owners, but most importantly, the voice of someone committed to the success of our library from now and into the future.
Thank you. Next, we're going to move to the question and answer portion of the forum with a reminder that each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer. First question will go to Mr. Kokoris. Describe what you think are the most important qualifications for a library trustee and how you meet those qualifications.
I think it's great to have a diversity of backgrounds on the library board, but I think probably the most important qualification would be to know libraries, either as a super user or as someone who's worked somehow in the field. And I find, that I meet both of those criterias. I use the library constantly. I always have something checked out, but I also spent 9 years working in libraries, and I know the ins and outs. I've managed a budget before. I've worked at the page and clerk level, and I've worked on the management team. So to me, that's one of the most important things, though I do not discount the perspective people might bring from the business community or other areas of life. I think that's the number one qualification. The only other thing I'll say is just having a passion for your community and a love of your community. And that's something I think I have through my activism and my volunteering in Elgin, and just my embracing of my neighborhood and the way my community has embraced me and all the great people I've met in the years since I moved here. That's all.
Thank you. Ms. Prochot, same question. Describe what you think are the most important qualifications for a library trustee and how you meet those qualifications.
So I believe that, same with John, that the library board should be filled with advocates for the library with a diverse career and cultural background. So I just think it's a bonus to have so much library experience, and it's crazy that he and I both have 9 years of working in libraries. So I'll talk a little bit about my experience in libraries. As I stated in my opening, I spent 9 years working in public libraries, and this includes 6 years as an operations manager. And this gives me firsthand knowledge of how libraries run behind the scenes. My particular responsibilities were overseeing facility management, including a multi-million-dollar building renovation, IT coordination, and staff training. I also was a member of the management team, where I presented at board meetings, created and managed budgets, drafted policies, I helped with a strategic plan, and I wrote a comprehensive disaster plan. And then in my professional life after libraries, now as a property manager, I focus on day-to-day facility operations and capital improvement projects. And I have the knowledge of emergency response procedures, environmental health and safety protocols, and risk management practices. And I believe that my professional background will make me an asset to have on the board of trustees, aside from and in addition to my passion for libraries and my goal to be an advocate for the library.
Thank you. Ms. Simmons, same question. Describe what you think are the most important qualifications for a library trustee and how you meet those qualifications.
Well, I would say there's 2 simple qualifications. The first is that you have a library card and you know how to use it. You need to be an enthusiastic user of the library, someone who's passionate about what it can offer your community, and someone who's going to be an ambassador for all of those services to your community all year long. And then the second qualification would be community leadership and specifically in the nonprofit realm. I have served in leadership positions in at least 5 different nonprofits, 3 of them locally here in Elgin. One is True Patriots Care, which honors veterans and first responders with American flag displays. I'm a founding board member for Peace Through Pain, which is a nonprofit that helps women going through trauma by giving them opportunities for self-care. And I'm currently president of WIM Fox Valley, which is a women's business network in Elgin that has a long history here. So all of those organizations have very different missions, but I've learned the skills of what it means to be a good leader in the nonprofit realm. And I'm looking forward to bringing those board leadership skills to the library.
Thank you. For the next question, we'll begin with Ms. Prochot. The COVID-19 pandemic has posed significant challenges to library staff and operations. How well has the library performed in accommodating residents during facility closures and restrictions?
I believe the library has been flexible and continued to provide excellent services to its customers during this pandemic. For the safety of the staff and customers, the library enforces mask wearing, social distancing, and followed CDC guidelines for cleaning protocols. And even though it was a tough decision and they chose to close the library until state restrictions were lifted, I still think that they've done an excellent job. Over the past year, they increased virtual programming offerings, and that gave more people than ever the opportunity to attend. They've done interactive virtual exhibits, and kids can still participate in story times live on their Facebook page. It's not the same as in person, but it's better than cartoons. The library has increased their online materials and resource offerings, and residents in the district that may not have used the library before can sign up for library cards online and use it for 90 days before even stepping foot in the library. I'm sure it was really difficult to remove physical access, but I know if I were a trustee at the time, I would have carefully weighed the options, and I probably would have come to the same decision. Staying home has slowed the spread of the virus, and like I mentioned in my opening statement, the library needs their patrons as much as the patrons need the library. I don't think I have any suggestions for how the library could have responded better. It's been a tough year for everyone, and everything they did has kept the library, or has kept the staff and patrons safe.
Thank you. Ms. Simmons, same question. The COVID-19 pandemic has posed significant challenges to library staff and operations. How well has the library performed in accommodating residents during facility closures and restrictions?
The library has definitely exceeded expectations. They accelerated a curbside pickup system, a library at home delivery system. They've put that all into place with next to no notice during the beginning of the first shutdown, which we were told was going to be 2 weeks long and ended up being substantially longer. If you look at the data of how many people are taking advantage of things like curbside pickup, it's astounding how many thousands of people are picking up books at that window, myself included, picking up books for my kids. I think the library did a good job. They are quarantining their materials. They have the same standards that any other public place has right now, which would include wearing a mask, access to hand sanitizer, limiting your time in close quarters, and then of course CDC recommended cleaning, which we are all familiar with by now. My only concern probably relates to the mixed messages that were sent by the state with regard to what activities were permitted versus what wasn't. It was frustrating to me as a mother when my children could not go and browse books in their own library, but they could go to Meijer or Target to browse books. It didn't really make sense. But that's not something I would necessarily fault library leadership for, because statewide, other libraries followed suit with closing during certain phases of closure during the pandemic. But moving forward, I really would like to see an emphasis on staying open as much as we can to ensure that we're not limiting access to people who may not have quality digital devices available to them or quality internet.
Thank you. Mr. Kokoris, same question. How well has the library performed in accommodating residents during facility closures and restrictions due to the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, I want to thank Amy and Joy for giving excellent answers. I agree with them both 100%. It's been completely crazy, crazy time to work in public service. And I'm really impressed with how the library has adapted. I won't repeat the 100 good examples that my fellow candidates just gave, but I will kind of focus on not only have we changed and recalibrated really quickly, but the patrons have really adapted, and we've heard very, very few complaints, and instead we've seen really quick adoption of ebook usage increasing by a third. Thousands and thousands of people attending virtual programs who never would have done that in the past. And homebound delivery, I think it's something like 3,000 items were delivered during the pandemic. So that's expanded greatly. So I'm not only proud of the library staff, but also of our patrons for complying and doing everything they can to keep things safe. And to echo what Joy was saying about her frustration with the guidance we've been getting, and I know everyone is kind of learning as we go how this virus works. But one thing, my very first meeting was a vote to close the library for a few months. And it was, I supported the decision, but it was a horrible way to start my tenure on the board. And I'm committed to doing everything I can to keep the library safe and open forevermore. And part of that is advocating for frontline library workers to be eligible for vaccines in one of these initial phases, which we still have not really received any guidance on, despite support from many of our local leaders. So that's something I'll continue to lead on while I'm on the board to make sure we stay open and stay safe.
Thank you. Next question will go first to Ms. Simmons. What will be your highest priorities if you are elected to the library board?
Well, number one, I want to ensure the library remains a leader, both locally, statewide, and nationally. There's very few people that have complaints about our library's leadership and the quality of programming it offers. And I intend to ensure that legacy continues. I would also like to focus on access and ensuring that everyone in our community has equal access to all of the library's resources. I remain incredibly concerned about the state of our local economy. Just last night, the Elgin City Council was talking about the need for a relief program because there are more than $850,000 in unpaid water bills. And if you assume that those renters who have not paid their water bills are probably also not paying their rent, how much more liability is out there that we're waiting once the moratorium on evictions is lifted? There's going to be a lot of financial hardship for a long time to come. And I want to make sure that our library is serving its patrons in the best way to help with that economic recovery. That can be with job training, that can be with education, but that could also be following the steps of Elgin Community College, which recently refunded taxpayer dollars back to taxpayers to help with the recovery. When you haven't paid your water bill in months, what's more helpful for you? Money in your pocket or a trip to the library? You need to pay your bills. So if it's possible and financially feasible based on our budget, the library was $600,000 under budget last fiscal year, and most of that was as a result of pandemic-related closures. I'm optimistic that we could have a discussion as a board about whether any of that money can go back to taxpayers to help our economic recovery, help people that are suffering right now.
Thank you. Mr. Kokoris, same question. What will be your highest priorities if you are reelected to the library board?
Similar to Joy, my top priority is looking at how the library can help us rebuild as a stronger and more just community where there's less suffering. We've seen an enormous amount of suffering, and I think Joy is right that in certain cases there's more hardship ahead. And I think the library has so much to offer in terms of helping people through this and helping people rebuild their lives. So that is my top priority, in addition to keeping the library safe, which I recently spoke on. And while I think Joy is right that we should always be looking at our budget and making sure that the money that we spend, we're spending it the most effective way possible to help people. I think rather than refunding a small portion of our budget the way ECC did, although I appreciate the sentiment behind that, I think we need to look at what programs are most effective and how can we use our existing budget to expand those programs, whether in the near term, they're home delivery and more virtual programming, or in the medium term, they're more geared towards job seekers, internet access to people who are working more from home or learning from home, and providing a place for people to get together again and collaborate and work together once it's safe to do so. I think that's a part of the library a lot of us haven't been able to enjoy as much lately. So I think we're really well positioned. We've got such a creative staff, and thanks to the community, a very healthy budget still. And I want to look at how do we spend that money to improve people's lives the most.
Thank you. Ms. Prochot, what will be your highest priorities if you are elected to the library board?
So there are many important issues that a trustee will need to balance. So if elected, my priorities would be threefold: to hold the staff accountable for fiscal responsibility, to ensure access to services is equitable, and to be an advocate for the library based on the voices of the community. It's especially critical during these uncertain times that funds are going towards enhancing resources and initiatives that benefit the particular needs of the community. And I'll keep a close eye on library spending. I appreciate what Joy had to say about options for the way the library spends money, possibly refunding. I wouldn't make any commitments or anything like that until I was on the board and could have like very in-depth conversations with the rest of the trustees. Because I tend to believe that the solution for rebuilding a local economy post-pandemic and over the next several years isn't to reduce, it's not to reduce funding for the library. The library does use its funding for community initiatives and programming centered on financial responsibility and job searching and connecting residents to resources that will help them get back on their feet. It's one huge reason libraries even exist. And so the second item on my list would be access to services. I would like to ensure that the library remains a destination for parents, students, job seekers, small businesses, and everyone in between. And that I would also like to be an advocate. As a trustee, I would like my job will be to listen to the needs of the residents. And I've made a personal goal this year to be more involved in my community. And that means supporting local organizations that can partner with the library and share all the wonderful things the library has to offer.
Thank you. Next question goes first to Mr. Kokoris. As a public facility dedicated to making information available to the public, it is surprising to find that information about the library itself is not always easily accessible, searchable, or transparent, and some information on the website is not up to date. Would you agree that all financial information, budgets, wages and salaries, board meeting agenda packets, and minutes should be easily accessible on the library's website for anyone to see?
Yes, that's a good question. And as I'm newer to the board, I've been doing a lot of my own research into this. And I will say to the person who asked that question, I agree sometimes it could be clearer, some of those documents, although I found the library has been incredibly forthcoming even before I was on the board with that sort of information. I'm certain that nothing is being hidden. But I support the board's president's kind of interest to continue streaming our meetings, even when the library is open. I think that's one really important way to provide access and transparency. And I hope that even when we're meeting in person at the library, we continue to provide access to videos of the meeting and more documentation. I really would suggest anyone who has trouble finding anything out first contact the library and get the information you need, but also let the board know what's missing. Because I think all of us are committed to transparency and would happily put any information front and center on the webpage that seems to be missing. I have a relationship with our library's kind of chief information, public information officer, and she's, I think, the best in the industry. And I'm certain that she would assist with this. Transparency is definitely a huge value to me, not just in the library, but I also work in the transportation sector, and it's the same deal. The public has a right to know that sort of thing. And the last thing I'll say about this is our library's finances are so good. We spend only $96 per resident, which is way lower than almost every library around. We're talking about half of what other libraries on the Fox River are spending. So we've got everything to be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Prochot, same question. I'll repeat it just so there's no
Thank
question.
you.
As a public facility dedicated to making information available to the public, it is surprising to find that information about the library itself is not always easily accessible, searchable, or transparent, and some information on the website is not up to date. Would you agree that all financial information, budgets, wages and salaries, board meeting agenda packets, and minutes should be easily accessible on the library's website?
Yes, I would agree with that statement for the most part. I think transparency is key for a public taxing body, and I have had similar experiences, John, as I've been preparing for this election. I've been doing a lot of research and having to contact the library to ask for specific pieces of information because I wasn't able to find them on the website, or at least not in as much detail as I'd like. Again, they have been great and have sent me everything that I have requested, and people can also do FOIA requests if necessary. But I haven't had an issue where they wouldn't send me the information. I agree that the website might be slightly outdated, but and maybe a little bit disorganized if you are looking for those certain things, but the board minutes and packets are available. So I was able to find those after attending meetings and wanting to go back and read the notes. I would also be in favor of online streaming going forward. I believe the board didn't quite do this until the pandemic, where they were doing meetings on Zoom. It seems like they only post the recorded audio, and I'd love to have the video posted so that people can see the interactions between the board members. And the point about salary and financial documents, the budget is on the website, but when it comes to salaries, I believe there are organizations out there that the library can participate in where they can share salaries for over a certain dollar amount. And one of them is called Open the Books. And if that's something that the library isn't participating in now, I would recommend that they do that.
Thank you. Ms. Simmons, same question. As a public facility dedicated to making information available to the public, it is surprising to find that information about the library itself is not always easily accessible, searchable, or transparent, and some information on the website is not up to date. Would you agree that all financial information, budgets, wages and salaries, board meeting agenda packets, and minutes should be easily accessible on the library's website?
Yes, to all of the above. Sunshine and transparency is one of the most important checks you have on your government as a taxpayer. And having access to all the information is the first step toward holding your elected officials accountable. I'm asking people to trust me with their vote. And if they don't know what I'm voting on, and if they don't know what the records say, then how can they hold me accountable for what I'm asking them for? So definitely all of those things should be posted publicly for any government body, not just the library. For a portion of my career, I worked for state government, and anyone could FOIA my salary or find my salary online for a couple of those positions. And as someone who worked in the public sector, I recognize that that's just part of the job because you're responsible to the taxpayers. You're not responsible to a private corporation or to investors. The taxpayers are the ones who are paying your salary. So they have a right to know what that salary is and whether or not they're getting value for it. So if there's anything and everything that doesn't compromise any confidentiality, like HR discussions, obviously, there are certain things that fall under that. But the vast majority of information that you included in that question should all be posted, no question. Before this forum tonight, I had to Google to find the most recent library budget. And you know what I found? The most information I found was in a Daily Herald article. That was the best summary I found. I should be able to go right to the Galeborn website and click on the budget and have a summary instantaneously. That's what transparency is. That's what communication is. And I will definitely support that as a trustee.
Thank you. Next question goes first to Ms. Prochot. What are some of the services and programs offered at Galeborn that people may be unaware of? And do you have ideas for additional programs or services?
I think I touched on several programs and services that people might not have known about. I mentioned the ability to get a library card online before even going to the library. That was one of the coolest things that I found out when I was researching library services. But I do have some ideas for programming that I'd love to share. And I'd love to see the library increase its sustainability efforts, both in the physical spaces and in programming. So for facilities, I'd love to see them explore the options for things like installing solar panels or car charging stations or working towards more LEED certifications. But my number one suggestion for a program or service would be to install honeybee hives. I know this is kind of silly, but I have honeybee hives at my work. The property that I manage has hired an urban beekeeping company to manage hives. And they come out several times during the spring and summer to care for the bees and also provide educational programming for all of our tenants. And this is something that I believe everyone would learn from in all age ranges. Plus we get to try some of the honey, which is really fun. The decision to install hives is part of a sustainability initiative. And I don't pretend to know everything about honeybees, but I know that pollinators are most important to every part of the ecosystem. And I used to be scared of bees, but now I'm a huge fan. I'd love to see more partnerships with the City of Elgin and the Sustainability Commission. I would recommend seminars on the zero waste movement, eco-minimalism lifestyles, with topics ranging from buying secondhand clothing or DIY cleaning products, or how to reduce your carbon footprint, or how to compost. And I think all of these are kind of specific, but as a society, we need to do a better job taking care of our earth. And the library is a destination for learning and is the center of the community. So we should talk the talk and walk the walk.
Thank you. Ms. Simmons, same question. What are some of the services and programs offered at Galeborn that people may be unaware of? And do you have ideas for additional programs or services?
Well, I would hope that anyone who's homebound or not able to leave their home for health reasons is aware of the library delivery service that has been implemented since the pandemic. I think that's a wonderful way, especially to keep people from becoming too isolated during this time. Also, there's things at the library that are not even related to books, like the Library of Things at the main branch, where you can check out, digital devices, you can check out crafting kits, knitting kits. It's wonderful to see how the library is broadening far beyond books. My children love checking out the Playaway tablets. Those are tablets that are either preloaded with ebooks and stories or preloaded with age-appropriate apps. As a parent, I like that because, oh, I'm sorry, honey, the tablet has to go back to the library. So I have a reason to, help mitigate how much screen time my daughter is getting at such a young age. But those are two wonderful programs. As for future programming, I would love to see more for veterans, especially younger veterans. Kane County has one of the highest concentrations of veterans in Illinois. And while the majority of those are Vietnam veterans and who are aging and slowly passing away, there is still a high number of younger veterans who are younger families who have kids that use the library, but they're also dealing disproportionately with mental health challenges. So if there are opportunities for us to partner in the mental health realm, I think both in public awareness as well as connecting with service providers, I think that would be a wonderful way to show support in our community for our veterans and all that they have done for us.
Thank you. Mr. Kokoris, what are some of the services and programs offered at Gale Borden that people may be unaware of? And do you have ideas for additional programs or services?
Yeah, I think once again, my fellow candidates did an exceptional job listing many of the great things the library offers. And I want to echo Joy in making a plug for the Library of Things as maybe one of the lesser known joys of the library. I actually have horrible internet at home. And when I was forced to work from home a few months earlier on in the pandemic, I found myself without internet one day, and within an hour, thanks to a library provided hotspot that I checked out, I was back online. My boss never knew a thing. And that's just one of so many interesting things you can check out. I know they have a ukulele there, which is a really great instrument to pick up when you're stuck at home under several feet of snow. They have a projector if you were ever having a meeting of some kind and you needed something like that. The list goes on, but I think that's something that we should really continue to expand. I actually requested that the library consider purchasing a ring light, which is popular with people who are Zooming or streaming on YouTube, something a lot of us have to do a lot more of. And that was an item that I thought you don't really want to buy for yourself that you're going to use once a month, but it's something the community could share. So that's something I'm really excited about with the library. As far as other ideas, everything Amy said about sustainability, I'm 100% on board. I was very excited to hear about the bees, something I had not thought of myself. Another thing I was very much involved in when I worked in Addison Public Library was providing services to immigrants and people who don't speak English fluently. And that's something our library does very well, but can always do better. We connected people with health insurance, driver's licenses, any sort of government service. And I'd like the library to continue exploring those avenues.
Thank you. I will mention in passing that while I was looking up information about the library, I was surprised to find out that they can handle passport services. That would have saved me so much time going to a mail facility and standing in a long line. So anyway, the last question will go to Ms. Simmons first. And I think in some cases, the three of you have touched on this. Gale Borden offers a variety of materials, programs, and services to the community. Are there any library district residents that you feel are currently underserved? And if so, how can their needs be better addressed?
Well, I remain concerned about any residents that don't have reliable internet, especially as the library moves toward more virtual programming and ebooks and all these items that are streamed online. If you don't have a reliable internet connection or a reliable digital device, you're not going to be able to access those materials in the same manner, especially if we are going through a situation like now when the library physical buildings are closed. So I would like to ensure that the residents of our community who don't have reliable internet access still have meaningful access to library materials. Now, we're fortunate throughout the pandemic that curbside service and home delivery were provided for these folks to take advantage of. But I want to make sure we keep that in mind, especially now. It's true that our culture is changing. We are moving more toward a virtual world. All you have to do is look right now at all our boxes. Here we are doing a virtual forum, and this is going to become more common because it's convenient for people on a long list of ways. But I also want to make sure that when you're doing that, you're not leaving someone out of the discussion. So I think it's something we just need to continue to talk about. But that's kind of the main area that I'm concerned about with regard to accessibility.
Thank you. Mr. Kokoris, same question. Are there any library district residents that you feel are currently underserved? And if so, how can their needs be better addressed?
Yeah, once again, I have to steal some of Joy's answer and agree with her completely that access to internet and closing the digital divide is a huge challenge, not just in our district, but everywhere. And it's something we can always do more of as that becomes more and more important. I also think Galeborn has an amazing award-winning Spanish language suite of services, and they do a good job reaching out to that community. But I think just because of the nature of how things change and language barriers and things like that, we can always do better serving our immigrant population, and especially our undocumented immigrant population. I met people when I worked in Addison at the library, which also has a very high Latino population, who were afraid if they applied for a library card, they might be deported, or had other sorts of misconceptions about the library. And I think half the reason I moved to Elgin was because of our diversity. And I want to really emphasize while I'm on the board that we need to do everything we can to welcome people from all parts of Elgin into the building and make sure they understand the full range of services we offer, and the low price of free that we offer them for. So I think that would be something, again, not at all a knock on the library. We just had an employee win an award a couple months ago for Hispanic outreach, but we can always do more.
Thank you. Ms. Prochot, same question. Are there any library district residents that you feel are currently underserved? And if so, how can their needs be better addressed?
So I think my fellow candidates answered very well. They always have great things to say. I think in the past couple of years, the library was trying to expand their ability of serving the underserved population by getting the bookmobile so that they could expand reach in the district. And I think that has been an excellent resource for them, especially during this pandemic, and the addition or the expansion of the home delivery service, which is great for the elderly, people who can't get out of the home as much. There are several populations throughout Elgin that could be served better. I think they're being served well, but there's always room for improvement. Veterans, elderly, homeless people, job seekers, I think, is a group that's going to grow in the next year that will really need some attention. Students, I know it's been a struggle the last year for students that have had to take their classes from home and maybe didn't have reliable internet. And I know that was probably something that was really difficult for the board when they decided to close the library, not having space for students to come and do their Zoom classes at the library. People who don't, English wasn't their first language, like John said, immigrants. I just think that there is always room for improvement. I don't have the solutions for any of these things. I think the library staff does a really good job of staying up to date with library trends and finding ways to serve their population. I want to empower them to do what they do best, and I want to cheer them on as the library evolves, and I think they stay really fluid, and that's what keeps libraries relevant.
Thank you. Thank you all for answering our questions. At this time, we're going to move to the 2-minute closing statements, beginning in reverse order with Ms. Simmons.
Thank you everyone for watching this forum. I hope you learned some things about us as candidates and as well as what you can expect from us on the Board of Trustees. I would be honored to have your vote on April 6th. As your Gale Borden trustee, I will continue to ensure that Gale Borden is the best library in the world. I will advocate for transparency and accountability. I will advocate for the taxpayer, especially those who are struggling, and I will remain committed to ensuring our library is accessible to every single one of our residents. If you go to my website, which is www.joysimmons.com, you can see more about my experience and my leadership in the community. I have decades of experience in the nonprofit realm and serving on boards. I'm what you could say someone who is chronically overcommitted. If I see a problem that needs volunteer help and service, I am there. And that's just always who I've been. So I've been the president of several nonprofits. I am a tireless volunteer for veterans in our community. I'm a tireless volunteer for so many parts of our community. And I don't do it for glory or for personal self-aggrandizement. I do it because it's the right thing to do. And if you elect me to the Gale Borden Board of Trustees, I will work hard for you and I will do the right thing. And I look forward to you holding me accountable to all of these promises at the ballot box. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Prochot, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. Thank you again to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum and you, the viewer, for taking time to listen to all of the candidates. I hope that this helps you make an educated decision when you're at the polls in April. I want to reiterate my passion for libraries and my 9 years of public library experience and my desire to collaborate as a member of the library board. Also my dedication to my community. I'm proud of the Gale Borden Library's response to the pandemic, and I support their decisions regarding the safety of their staff and customers. I believe the library is spending their tax dollars wisely while still providing top-notch services to the residents of the district. And I'll support the library staff while they work hard to keep the library moving forward during technology changes and with the needs of the community. I'm ready to move from library user to library employee to finally an elected trustee for the library district in the town I'm proud to call home, with the current incumbents and with John and Joy.
Thank you. And finally, we have Mr. Kokoris's closing statement.
Yeah, I would also just like to thank everyone who's watching for caring enough about the library to sit through my nervous answers and also my very smart fellow candidates' answers. Thanks to this forum and thanks to all the questions we got, I've been able to say most of what I feel the need to say. I love Gale Borden. It's a world-class library with a very responsible budget. I've seen and been a part of how libraries can change people's lives. I'm going to focus on community, cooperation, innovation, and sustainability while I'm on the board. And my top priority is looking for ways the library can help us regroup and rebuild after COVID. I think I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's very important that we all make a point to vote this April, not just in this race for all the candidates on the screen right now, but also up and down the ballot for other races. I see it all the time through my job working with hundreds of municipalities. Local elections really matter. And we're lucky in our community to have a very good local government, and we should all work hard to keep it that way. I'm running my campaign using the same approach the clerks at the front desk of the library do it. I'm not asking for any money. I'm not asking for any volunteers. The only thing I'm asking you for is to consider voting for me and to help a friend or two cast their ballot, regardless of who they're voting for. It's never been easier to vote, but there are a lot of people who just need a little push. So let's follow the example set by the League of Women Voters and spread the word and help people vote and elect people who care about our community, like all the candidates on this panel today. You can visit votekokoris.com or find me on Facebook to learn more or get in touch. I love talking about the library with my neighbors. Thank you so much.
Thank you for participating in this candidate forum and giving the voters a chance to hear your views. For more information on these and other candidates, check the voter guide on our League website, LWVELginarea.org. That concludes tonight's candidate forum. I want to thank the candidates, the league members who work to provide this virtual forum, and the voters who take the time to watch these forums and learn about the candidates in order to make an informed choice. Voting early in person at specified early voting sites begins on March 22nd. And voting on election day at your regular polling place will of course be on April 6th. If you plan to vote early, please note that different sites are open different hours and there may be changes this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. You can check the Kane County Elections website for any updates. We hope that this candidate forum presented as a public service by the League of Women Voters has been helpful. If you are interested in joining the Elgin Area League of Women Voters or supporting the work that we do, please contact us at lwvelginarea.org. League membership is open to men as well as women, and we welcome anyone interested in issues, voter registration, and elections. Thank you and good night.